Now that we know where we're going, we have our destination. In order to get there, in order to leap, to grow, we need to have a special mindset. After all, what does a leader have to do in order to perform at its highest, act fearlessly, and reach their full potential? Our speaker today is going to speak just about that. When he's not binging on the latest season of Stranger Things or sneaking in some time in PS5, he's contributing to Entrepreneur.com, writing best-selling books, and teaching leaders at organizations like Microsoft, PwC, and Salesforce, and now the Basamh Group. So sharing what you can do to lever up your mindset, please welcome our Michael Anderson.
Assalamu alaikum. This is my first time in Saudi Arabia, and thank you so much for having me out here. And over the past few days, I've been learning about your country, learning about your organization, and meeting people. And I'm really, really impressed because you have some bold visions, even Vision 2030. It's just really inspiring to hear about that. Learning what you're doing here, meeting Khalid and the executive teams, it's very inspiring. And there's one thing that keeps coming up is this word fearless. Fearless disruption, all these ambitious type things. And it really caused me to look at my life and to look at my leadership. And I realized that I was holding myself back. You know, I could blame it on him, I could blame it on other things, but everything's always about us, right? It's easier to blame other people. It's hard to blame ourselves sometimes, but that's where the growth occurs. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. So I went and I earned a master's degree in psychology. Because, you know, I'm a programmer. I like to know what makes everybody tick, what makes me tick, what makes other people tick. And it was a very compassionate, humanistic view of psychology, and I really got to understand who I was. Because I realized doing that program, I was spending all my time, I was insecure and I wanted to be accepted, so I spent all my time trying to be who I thought other people wanted me to be. But through this program, I got to learn who I was, and not only learn who I was, but I got to like and accept myself and trust myself. And when I did that, my leadership transformed. I went on to found 3 companies, 2 in California, 1 in Singapore, and we started to have great success. We were listed on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies a couple years in a row. We were voted the #1 best place to work, and I won Social Entrepreneur of the Year. That was externally, but internally I was finally having fun because I was seeing my people grow. And I think that's one of the most fulfilling things, like Khalid said. So one of the most fulfilling things you can do as a leader is watch your people grow as people, not just as business people. And watch your companies grow and give back to the community like you're doing here. And so what happened is some of the other business owners saw the change in me, and they asked me to basically help them and help their organizations, and I liked that. And so I sold my companies, and now what I do is I do this full time. I have 4 books. I'm coming out with a new one next month. And interestingly enough, it's called Leadership Mindset 2.0. Because the Leadership Mindset 1.0 is this top-down leadership. But what 2.0 is about empowering other people, and it's about growing other people, because you want to scale a company. You can't scale a company all by yourself. You can't everything revolve around you. You have to give your people the responsibility, the commitment, the trust to have them grow as people, and then they grow other people, and that's how you scale a company. And that's what leads to long-term growth. And that's really what I see here. So I just wanted to teach a little bit of mindset tips so that you can help do that for you and people in your organization. All right, enough about me. I'm American. I like to talk about myself, so thanks for listening. But let's talk a little bit. So I went on to get a neuroscience degree too. And again, that's what companies bring me in. I teach leadership mindset, not management, not business, but how to overcome imposter syndrome and really move through the fear and be fearless. How to move from tactical to strategic. How to engage a team by empowering them instead of getting angry or yelling at them. How to do it from an empowering state. Now, if we break I'm going to go a little psychology, a little neuroscience. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's always important to understand the basics. We're going to break your consciousness down into 2 areas. The first is your authentic self, and the other part is your ego. Now, and you might have heard these terms before, but it's important to define all these. So your authentic self is your natural state. It's a state of connection. It's a state of love. It's a state of where you feel safe and you're able to be yourself. However, we have this other side. We have the ego. Now, the ego is not necessarily bad, but the job of the ego, this is very important, the ego has one job, and it's to protect you. And it's important for us to protect ourselves sometimes. The thing is, how we're wired has to do with the last 20,000 years, not the last 100 years, because the last 200,000, 20,000 years, we had to literally protect ourselves, right? Now, fear comes like, when you get a bill in the mail you weren't expecting, or, you're sitting through a board meeting getting some difficult, questions. So it's a different type of, it's not the fighting fear anymore. So our wiring is still, it's not caught up with us because you don't catch up with your brain doesn't rewire itself. People's brains don't rewire themselves in 100 years. It takes a couple thousand years. So we're dealing with a bit of an inefficient system here. And what happens is you have a part in your brain called the amygdala. It's about the size of an almond. And what happens is when it feels a threat, when it senses a threat, it moves you to the ego. And this is what I call it. And it tells the HPA system, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal glands to put cortisol and adrenaline in your body. And so you have a chemical reaction when you sense a threat. And you'll know this because say you're in a car and you almost have an accident, right? Or somebody just misses you, whether you're driving or not. And you're like, whoa! And then, but you're like on edge. You're shaking sometimes, and that doesn't go away after 10 seconds, right? It takes 2, 3, 4 minutes. That's because it's a chemical. You have chemicals in your body that are doing that. So it's okay to be in your ego, but we need to know this. But how this relates to leadership is, you can only either be in your authentic self or your ego. You can be further in your authentic self or you can be further in your ego, but you can never be in both at the same time. And poor leadership comes from when people are in their ego. Because when you're in your ego, you're closed, you micromanage, you snap at people. That's where poor management comes from. But when you're in your authentic self, you're giving, you're connecting. You're in your intuition. You can tell what's happening when you're in your creative. You can't be creative when you're in your ego. You're creative when you're in your authentic self. So one of the most simple things you can ever do is ask yourself, right now, am I in my ego or my authentic self? Say there's a phone call that you have to have and you feel you're a bit anxious. You say, oh, hey, my ego is playing up right now. And the funny thing is, just by asking yourself that question, oftentimes you become present and you at least get to neutral, if not into your authentic self. Because the ego is always worried about the past or the future. But when you're present right now, you're either neutral or in your authentic self. Now, how does this matter for leadership, though, when you're leading other people? Your job is to put your people in their authentic self. So let's give a common example. Say you have a high performer and you promote them. And normally they're very friendly, they're happy, etc. After 2 or 3 weeks of the promotion, they're not really their same selves. Maybe the performance of the team is down a little bit. They're new to this team, the performance is down. They're not the happy person anymore. Are they in their ego or their authentic self? They're in their ego because they've been placed in a new situation and they don't feel safe. So what you need to do as a leader is you need to have that conversation with them. You don't want to ever get down on them, like, what's wrong with your team? What's wrong? Try harder. You want to say, hey, what's going on? This is a time to coach them, to give them support and move them into their authentic self when they can get their confidence back. Because if you look at confidence, that we have 3 different areas. So we have shyness, which is an ego thing. Shyness, I don't want to come up here. I don't want to show myself. That's the ego trying to protect you. And then over here you have arrogance. And arrogance is an ego-based type thing because I'm going to go on the offensive because I don't want anybody to truly see me or know me. That's what arrogance is. But you have this beautiful area in the middle I call the window of confidence. And I'll tell you what, think of every leader that you've ever looked up to. They have some sort of confidence. There's never ever been an insecure leader that people are like, I want to follow. People follow confidence. And you need to find your confidence. And you find your confidence by finding out who you truly are. Now let's take it to the next step. Now I love talking about comfort zone. I know Khalid does too, but so let's talk about comfort zone. I need a volunteer here first. Who can volunteer to come up to the stage with me? Come on, who's going to get out of their comfort zone? Come on up, come on, please. Did you raise your hand, right? Well, this is out of your comfort zone. Come on up. All right, give her a hand for coming up. Yes. Hello. Assalamu alaikum. What's your first name? Sally. Oh, that's an easy one. I can handle Sally. Good. My Arabic's still coming. So say Sally, pretend there's a circle around Sally, and she's in her comfort zone. So what's it like in your comfort zone? It's an easy answer. It's in the name. What's it like in your comfort zone? It's easy. Simple. Yeah, simple. It's comfortable. Yes. So Sally,
I'm confident in myself.
You're confident. You like your comfort zone, right? Now take 2 steps over here, Sally. Now you're outside of your comfort zone. What is life like now? What's your feelings like now?
I'm so confident.
No, not the right answer. When we're out of our comfort zone, what is up?
Yeah, I'll feel anxious, stressed, worried.
You're exactly right. And where does your ego, and when you're outside of your comfort zone, your ego pops up because it's trying to protect you, because it's an unknown. The ego likes comfort, control, and security. Anything it can't control, anything it's not comfortable with, it freaks out. And so where is the ego trying to push you back to?
My comfort zone.
Exactly, your comfort zone, exactly right. Now, what we need to do is spend time outside of our comfort zone. Because when you can actually get used to this, when you can become okay with the anxiety, when you can be okay with being challenged, when you can be okay with things not being comfortable, then that's where the gold is, because your comfort zone grows. And that's when you grow. And so what we want to do, I'm going to change your definition of fearless. To me, fearless isn't not having fear. Fearless, true fearlessness, true courage, true bravery is having fear and doing it anyway. Because what you want to do is what we call live on the edges. You want to live just outside of your comfort zone. It's a little bit hard to live way outside of your comfort zone because the ego really plays tricks on you. Because when you're outside of the comfort zone, your ego's telling you, you don't belong here, run on back, you're a fraud, you're not going to work, you're going to look stupid, right? Our egos are really good. My ego is really good at that. I don't know about your ego, but that's what my ego does. But when you can get used to that and say, you know what, I know you're my ego, stop it, I'm okay, I'm good, and you can put yourself a bit outside of your comfort zone and then have your comfort zone keep growing, and then once you realize you're comfortable, take that next step. That's what great goals and great visions do for you and your team. It has them always playing a little outside of their comfort zone, and you supporting them to do that. And having them play, having them fail sometimes, and having them succeed. That's what great leadership does, and that's how you grow your leaders, and that's how you grow yourself. Sally, thank you so much for being outside your comfort zone. Yes. I love how she raised her hand, and she's like, well, I'm not going up till you tell me what's, but good job for stepping outside your comfort zone and going anywhere. That was really, really brave. Thank you. And I went through all this. Let me tell you 1 or 2 quick stories about myself. So in California, when I was learning all this type of things, I went to a networking event, and we've probably all been in networking events here, right? In a way that this has a networking component, but this was a pure networking event where just a bunch of business people get together and you want to meet other people. So I park and I walk in and I'm alone, and I walk into the event, and I see 3 people in a semicircle, and they're all talking to each other. And you can tell by their body language they didn't know each other. So, there was like an opening so I could go up there and introduce myself, which is what you want to do at a networking event, right? So I take 2 steps there, and out of the corner of my eye, I spot the bar. And for some unknown reason, instead of continuing on, I pivoted and I walked over and I got myself a soft drink. 2 minutes later, I'm sipping on my drink, and I'm holding the wall up, as we say. I'm leaning against the wall, and I'm like, what did I just do? I came here to meet people. I had the perfect opportunity to meet people, and yet here I am. I'm standing alone. I had a fear right then. I had a fear. I had a fear of rejection. Now, how many times have you been to a networking event and you meet somebody, and you're like, hello, and they're like, hello, I don't like you. Has that ever happened? Of course not. It's an irrational fear, but here I am, a mid-30s business owner, and I get to this thing, and all of a sudden, I'm playing small because my ego was afraid of fear. So these play all these little games. The egos play all these little games with us. I met this guy once, and he traveled all the time, and I think a lot of us travel a lot. And he was talking to me. We were talking, and he said that, when I go out to a hotel, he goes, I hate to eat alone. I'm like, well, I hate to eat alone too. I mean, we stay in hotels, right? If you're in a hotel and nobody's taking you around, you can either go, stay up and order room service so they bring it up, and then you have your laptop on your knees or something, and when you're eating, or you go and sit at that really awkward table alone in the hotel restaurant. But he's like, I don't want to do either of that. I really like to eat with people. And I said, so what do you do? He said, well, I find people to eat with. I'm like, well, what do you mean you find people to eat with? He goes, well, I go down to the hotel restaurant and I ask them if I could join them for dinner. I'm like, that's a little weird. I said, so what's your success rate, like 90, 95%? He goes, no, about, 30, 35%. I'm like, so you go, no, yes? He's like, yeah. I go, no, yes. And I'm like, you're my hero. I mean, that's amazing. Imagine the confidence and the self-esteem. Because people are saying, I'm like, well, how do you do it? And he said, well, if they're not saying no to me, they're saying no to having dinner with me. Maybe they're at a business meeting, maybe they're, whatever it is, maybe they're tired from traveling. But he's like, I don't take it personally, and that's not going to get me closer to my goal. And I thought, that's amazing. And I really took that in. I actually think of him whenever I have the same type of opportunities. And that's why I talk about getting to know yourself and getting to know who you are. We have a short time together, so I just want to leave. So I wanted to give some context to fear and ego and authentic self and how they interrelate and how important it is for you as a leader to really understand that you're going to experience fear. If you're not, in fact, I tell leaders, if you're not experiencing fear, if you feel totally comfortable, you have a problem, because you're not challenging yourself. When they talk about joining different groups, if you're the smartest person in the room, they say you're in the wrong room. Because how are you going to learn anything if you're the smartest person in the room? So you need to upgrade your room, etc. Now, I like hacks. I'm a programmer. I'm a software guy, so I always like hacks. I always like little easy ways you can make little shifts in your life. And just to give you a fun way to frame this, because in psychology we have what's called a frame, and that means to look at things differently. How are you going to look at things differently? And that way, you're in a position, and before I say that, it's what's really impressive about Basamh Group is the fact is you're an existing brand, but you're really focused on innovation. And you're really focused on growth, and you're not afraid to take risks. Because I see a lot of brands, I work with a lot of companies around the world, and they're very good about just sitting on their market share and collecting money. But what happens to them is they start to have a decline, and then they're stagnant. So I really appreciate that this organization is here, and they're looking for growth, for disruption, because that takes courage. That takes moving past the fear. That takes the fearlessness that we're talking about. But an easy way for you internally and to you to work with your team to frame these type of risks is to call it an experiment. Because what's the only way you fail an experiment? Not to do it. Just by doing an experiment, you win. And I'll give you a real life example from my life. Again, there's an organization called Conscious Capitalism, and it's started by the CEO of Whole Foods. And it's about having businesses be a good force, a positive force on humanity. And so it's about giving back to the community, having a purpose, etc. And they picked me for one of the California chapters. They picked me to be the president of the inaugural board of directors. A great challenge and a great opportunity. So of course I really believed in the cause. So I accepted. We put together the board of directors, and we had this amazing first event. We had 300 business leaders from around the area. We had amazing speakers, and everybody was like, "Wow!" So we put ourselves on the map. And then we're like, okay, what are we going to do next? So summer was coming up when a lot of people go on holiday. It was a couple weeks before August when a lot of people, went away with them and with their families. And I'm like, I really want to have another event before we hit summer because it's going to be so much of a gap. And I want to have like a CEO type. We bring a lot of really important people, maybe 8 to 10 in, and we have a really tight-knit group. I'm like, but I don't know if we can do it before summer, so it's a risk. I said, I'll tell you what, let's call this an experiment. And we'll put a little bit of effort to it. We won't put everything to it because that's what an experiment does. You want to test the waters. So we had one person make a couple calls, and then we set a time frame of 2 weeks, and we needed to have at least 8 people join. We wanted 12 people, and after that 2 weeks, we had one person sign up. So I said, okay, let's cancel it. So that was the experiment. So did we fail there? Did I fail? No, we gave it a shot. But see, if I would have said, oh, we got to do this, and we're going to do this, and then all of a sudden we had to cancel it, that might have been a failure. But when we can frame things as an experiment, we can say, you know what, we're going to try this. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. It's fun, right? People are creative. They know they can fail because so many companies are like, we want to do everything perfectly, and we want to innovate. I'm like, what? It's like I want to be tall and short at the same time. It just doesn't work. I've tried. Don't worry. And what happens is, so when you have a culture of innovation, you have to find ways to get people okay to be out of their comfort zone. And by putting frames like an experiment around it, it really helps and it creates a little bit of fun. And because oftentimes, especially when people are underneath you, they want to always succeed. But you don't know if this is going to succeed. And when people are in their ego and they think they have to succeed, that's when they're going to get stressed. That's when you might not always get the true information coming out. So when you can put things as an experiment, it really opens things up. So I hope today was just a little bit helpful to you and your leadership, to you and your personal leadership, and to you and the people that report to you. If anything, I want to normalize it's okay to be in your ego. I want to normalize it's okay to feel some anxiety. It's okay. It's not only okay, it's good to be scared sometimes. It's good to challenge yourself because that's where the growth is. But that doesn't mean you have to live with it because I think what great leaders do is realize that again and move forward anyway and model that for your team because your team's going to pick up on all these things. No matter what you say, they're going to pick up on what you do. And so that's why this is so important. And if you enjoyed this, we have a special gift for you. So I think we're going to be giving it out during the after the lunch break. It's called Leadership Mindset 2.0. And it's really about the psychology and neuroscience of being a leader. I mean, I want to give everybody just a little bit of a taste right here, but you're going to be getting a new book. And what's interesting, you have to forgive me on this book because it doesn't actually come out globally until mid-January. So there might be a couple English errors. It's good that English is a second language of a lot of people because you'll it's still being edited like actually right now. So you got an in-process edition. But what's amazing is you're literally getting it a month before everybody else in the world can get it. In fact, thank you. And I love what I do, and I love leadership, and I know how important it is. Because, you're important. You as a leader in this organization, it's important for you. It's important for your family, who you feed your family and provide for your family. But it's also important for Saudi Arabia because you are an important part of Saudi Arabia. And, the more you can bring this new type of leadership and Leadership Mindset 2.0, and for the young people, teach them, empower them, give them confidence, make them the next leaders. And like you said, go to other countries and say, this is what we're doing here. And people see, wow, that's what's going on here. To me, that's what leadership's about. Leadership's not about us. We have to only focus on us, but leadership is about the impact we make out here. My purpose is to elevate the consciousness of the world by working with leaders, by growing leaders. Because I know each and every one of you, you touch so many people. Your friends look up to you because you're a leader, whether they admit it or not. Your family looks up to you. Everybody in your organization looks up to you. And the more you can grow them as people, the more everybody, the whole world, is going to benefit. So I'll be here for the next couple hours. I'll be here around lunch. If you want me to sign your book, I can sign your book. I love talking about this, so please come up and introduce yourself. Please stay in touch. And thank you for being a tiny part of my experiment, and thank you for letting me be a little part of yours. Yes,
thank you. Thank you, Michael, for the inspiring speech. And we are all, I think, looking forward to read the new release.